his office is in North Liberty. Where's it at, David? Hawkeye Drive on 965. So go see him. He has a lot of local bus trips, and he kind of specializes in that, but he does do any kind of travel plans. So give him some. He's going to be a future Rotarian. I know that. So just take a few times here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Usha Balakrishnan, and my guest today is Judy Levitt. Will you please rise? And Judy, I would like all of you to recruit Judy to Rotary. Judy serves on my board of directors, was one of the founders for the Iowa Women's Foundation, and now is joining the City of Literature Board. Welcome, Judy.
Good afternoon, I'm Tita Kaufman, and my guest again is my sister Telly, who is visiting, and I'm getting a little sad because she's leaving next week. Thank you, Telly.
My name is Tricia Smith, and I have a guest today, Shivi Meningi. He is an intern with our Kirkwood High School internship program and is focusing on learning about administration in our nonprofit. And I also have another special guest today. This is baby Ryan. So when Ryan was our campaign co-chair at United Way, he wanted to have a life-size figure of him at our kickoff because at the last minute he couldn't attend. And he thought this was going to be life-size. And this is how it got printed. So this has been in my office for a couple of years now, and I'm hard to part with, but I only think it's fair that Ryan gets baby Ryan now.
Thank you, Tricia. I was already sweating up here from running around, but now I'm red-faced and embarrassed too. Thank you, Tricia. That's funny. The pandemic forced us into a lot of different creative ways of raising money for the United Way back in 2020. And luckily, Tricia Smith was our fearless leader for myself and Anna Moyer Stone, because we would have flatly failed without her. So that idea was hers, by the way. We are going to get on to announcements. So Marcus and Sean are here live. They've got a few of their team members joining us also via Zoom. So I'm going to give them the mic and the opportunity to introduce the team members. And then they're going to do like a 2 to 3 minute presentation on, is Linda Farkas, Pam Funky here? These guys are World Affairs students who were there just recently, sitting at World Affairs, and the earthquake in Afghanistan happened, and they sprung to action and did something about it almost immediately, I think. So guys, take the floor. However this is going to work. We're kind of juggling some slides here, but I think we're going to be able to pull it off.
Yes. Sorry, guys, I got to get my notes up here on my phone due to technical difficulties. I apologize. So welcome, everybody. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for having us here. Thank you, Ryan, for having us here as well. We are here on behalf of Group F from the World Affairs Seminar to speak to the Iowa City Noon Rotary about a crisis in Afghanistan. My name is Sean Keene. I'm 17. I'm originally from Columbia, Missouri, but I now live here in North Liberty, Iowa. And I will be wanting to attend either Drake, Northwestern, or Iowa to study political science. To either study, there we go. To either study political science or film studies. Sorry, this is Marcus's part. We apologize, guys. Here comes Marcus.
We are having some technical difficulties. Apologies for that. Good afternoon. My name is Marcus Miller. I was part of Sean's group at WAS, World Affairs Seminar. Have you mentioned our teammates already? No. Okay. We are here joined online on Zoom with Peyton and Connor, who are also two of our teammates. Just the arrows at the bottom should work just fine. One second, please.
Okay, good, it's working. I thought I was gonna have to pull out my stand-up routine. All right. You're up, Marcus.
Okay, here you can see some quick bios of us. This is our whole team. My name is Marcus Miller. As I said, I'm 17 years old. I'm a senior at Iowa City High School. I've lived in Iowa City my whole life, and I hope to attend Georgia Tech or MIT to study aerospace engineering. So yeah, this is just a brief slide about the World Affairs Seminar. Once again, this is where our team met. This was our coalition point. This is where our team formed. So we'd definitely like to shout out the World Affairs Seminar as the place where we were able to form our team.
And one particular presentation that week was one that struck our group and me especially in the moment by this woman, Bethany Lurch, who is a psychotherapist who spent most of her early career teaching in the Middle East, but most specifically in Afghanistan. Recounting her experiences, Ms. Lurch has described some of the traumas and hardships she witnessed and experienced in her time there. Bethany Lurch's presentation inspired us to make a positive impact in Afghanistan. Our only problem was we didn't have a specific idea of what we wanted to do with our newfound enthusiasm.
Doing something for others is about meeting a need. We had the enthusiasm to meet, but we had no specific or direct need until our need presented itself only a few hours after Mrs. Lurch's presentation concluded. On the morning of June 22nd, 2022, Eastern Afghanistan was struck by a 6.1 magnitude earthquake, the strongest earthquake to hit that region in the last 2 decades. 1,000 people were killed, 3,000 people were injured, 10,000 homes were lost, and millions of dollars in property damage were suffered.
And it's at times like these and during crises like these that many people tend to turn a blind eye towards the people, the human beings affected by this severe disaster, saying, there's nothing that I can do that would make any difference. And many of us were like this, but after hearing Ms. Lurch's testimony, we decided to turn a blind eye no longer. We were gonna do something, anything, to help those who need it. Doesn't matter that they're all the way across the world and that we've never met, let alone seen them. They need help and we wanna give it to them.
So here's what we've done so far. We started a change.org petition with the intention of raising awareness for the crisis that faces the Afghani people. We've also started a GoFundMe, linked directly to the Global Giving Foundation, a foundation that opts to collect and distribute funds for people around the world facing crises like these. So far, we've obtained $175 in our GoFundMe and over 200 signatures on our change.org petition. There we go. Here's what we ask of you. We need to improve upon 4 main points for this project to grow to the next level. Firstly, funding. We will either need to create a new fundraiser or draw more traffic and funds toward the existing GoFundMe fundraiser that we've already started. In terms of awareness, we need to spread awareness about the crisis in Afghanistan and of our effort to do good for these people. In the way of recognition, we need to put our names and this project on the map as a group that is actively trying to do good for the people of Afghanistan and how we are accomplishing that, giving ourselves some credibility. And finally, in support, general support. We need support in terms of networking to other groups and to the general public, making use of the Iowa City Noon Rotary's reputation and influence to accomplish this. We also would appreciate direct funding or financial support from the Rotary.
So we would like to thank you for our brief time here. If you want to sign our petition, the link, the QR code is right there. The GoFundMe is right there. The GoFundMe is also embedded in the petition. And Ryan, if you want to have people sign it later, during now, whatever. If you would like to contact us with any questions, I don't know how that would work again with timing wise, but you can also contact all of us on the team here and we would be happy to.
I'm the co-chair of our youth leadership committee, and thank you both. I didn't know you were coming, and I want thank you so much for coming, but I want everybody to know what their dollars do with these students. And I don't know what happened to all of you this year, but everybody's come back with a mission, and so it was amazing. And so we'll see you back here August 18th for our lunch, and thank you so much. And so give. We're going to start our fundraising efforts in a few weeks. So think about what what you are giving this year and double it.
Yes, thank you for that. And Ryan?
Thank you, guys. What a cool story of how, these young leaders sort of are evolved through Rotary's program. So we've got any other announcements, Rotary related announcements? I didn't open it up to the floor. Make your way to the front if you have one. No? Okay, I'm gonna jump into another one. This is an honor, really beyond all belief to be able to do this. So we've got a Rotarian amongst us who has received an award that is gonna be very meaningful to everybody in the club. This person doesn't know she's about to receive this award, but she was president of our club when I joined it. And I still remember the first meeting Usha was leading when I showed up. And she was one of the most dynamic meeting leaders that we've ever had. The stories she was able to tell, the poems, the songs, everything was super inspiring, both to me and I think to every Rotarian in the room. Usha, you have been given a district governor's citation, which to me, I didn't know a citation was a good thing, but it is. Made me nervous at first. But this is, the actual name of this is the Herb Wilson Humanitarian Fund. And Usha, I would like you to come forward and receive this award. Thank you, yes. Herb meant so much to all of us. Usha, do you want to say just a few words?
Well, I'm caught off guard, but one of the things that I don't mind doing at all, again in the club, for those of you who knew Herb for a long time, and new people who do not know Herb Wilson, I had done like a memorial remarks for Herb Wilson at the district conference. And I would say, I was crying, but everybody else was crying too. But I tried to keep it in a way that would inspire us and also laugh. Herb had a generous laugh. And maybe I'll just put it together on the program one day and do that over here. In recognition not of me, but how much Herb really meant to our club and how he really influenced the next generation. I would like to think that leaves the responsibility for me to influence the next generation coming of Rotarians. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Usha. Okay, it is time for a really exciting moment in Rotary. We get to induct 2 new members today. I'm gonna have both Alec and Ian step on up here to this side, along with Vern Folkman. Oh, yep, everybody out of the way. We haven't been able to do this for a little while, so it's always exciting to bring in new membership to the club, something we all need to continue to strive to do throughout the year. And I'm gonna let Vern first introduce Ian Carlson as our newest Rotarian.
Happy to do that, President. Yes, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Ian. And I'm going to tell you just a little bit about his background so that you kind of know him a little bit better. And he's going to make an excellent Rotarian. His dad, Brent, was an engineer at Collins Aerospace in Cedar Rapids. Unfortunately, he has passed. I don't know how recently, but 3 years. So his mom, Christina, is an occupational therapist, and his brother, Ryan, is a senior at Iowa studying civil engineering. Ian was born in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and moved in 2004 to Cedar Rapids. He graduated from Kennedy High School in 2017 and the University of Iowa in 2020 with a degree in finance. Ian made the decision that he wanted to become a financial advisor in 2019 after his dad lost his battle with cancer. This was the area he felt like he would have the most to offer in serving other people as they navigate challenging times. When I asked Ian why he wanted to join our Rotary Club, he said, "I feel like Rotary is a natural fit for me as it allows me to meet new people in the community while continuing to serve in another aspect." So I met Ian at a chamber meeting, And we just kind of hit it off. And I said, would you like to be a Rotarian? He said, I'd like to come and look it out or try it out. So here he is.
That's all it takes is just asking people sometimes. So good job, Vern. Alex Sendelar is the newest Rotarian now. He grew up in a small town in northeast Nebraska, population 300. Got me beat by about 300 there as far as smallness. Went to college at Buena Vista in Storm Lake, Iowa, majored in business and psychology. Competed in track and field while in college, as did I. We actually connected on this just overnight via email. And we've got some stories to share, I think. After college, his future wife, who was also a trackster at Buena Vista, I assume, moved to Omaha to attend Creighton for pharmacy school. Alec worked at TD Ameritrade in Omaha for 5 years. And then Alec and Morgan, okay. Alec and Morgan got married January 31st, 2019, so still newlyweds in my book. Moved to Tiffin, Iowa in May, so Morgan could complete her residency in emergency medicine. Alec began working as an independent financial advisor through Principal, and recently moved to Tiffin and opened his own office, so congrats on that. He's a volunteer firefighter in Tiffin, as well as a medical officer for the city managing the EMS program. Didn't know that either. We're gonna have to talk about our Kerber Heart Safe initiative, I think. Alec has a combined 6 years of volunteer service as a firefighter, has traveled to 8 countries to volunteer, mainly building houses or teaching English, and is excited to grow his impact while serving others through this very fine Rotary Club. So why don't we give it up for Alec and Ian. Alec and Ian, this is a really big moment in your lives. You're joining an awesome club. This Rotary Club has a lot of history, as you guys have recently learned about in the orientation. We're a big deal club, as Ray Mustin told me at the district conference this year. And so you're joining a wealth of knowledge and really information about our community and also our world all around us. So our club has done projects all across the world and a lot of things right here in Iowa City. So Ian Carlson, here is your new badge. You're official. And Alex Sindelar, welcome guys. I'm gonna shake each of your hands if I could. And if anybody could snap a picture, is that possible? Get these guys up on our Facebook page. JJ, you got it? Welcome, guys. Alec and Ian, if you guys can kind of congregate out by the badges as people are leaving and give folks an opportunity to meet you and say hi and welcome you to this fine club. So thanks, guys. Okay, we are on to our program. We're gonna delay Smile. Sorry, Bob, just for lack of time. We'll sing it at the end for fun if we have time. But I wanna give plenty of time for our program today and to Linda Mustin, who is going to introduce our speaker. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you, Ryan. Can you hear me in the back? Joe LeValley has been a longtime friend, but in case I might be tempted to kind of go off the rails, I'm going to give you his formal introduction today. He's an author, and that's what he's here today, talking about a series of award-winning mystery thrillers that he has written post-retirement. Prior to becoming an author, Joe was a reporter and photographer for Iowa newspapers. He did features as well, and included a lot of sweeping crime and criminal justice issues. Subsequently, and that's how I knew him, he served more than 30 years as a healthcare executive. It seems like only yesterday in the 80s, we were lobbying for improvements for Medicare, and now we're on it. Joe plays drums and guitar. And in 2016, he was inducted into the Iowa Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Joe's a lifelong, another one. Joe's a lifelong Iowan. He has a degree in journalism from Drake, and he has a master's in business administration from the Tippie School. He and his wife, Jane, have 6 children. They live in Dallas County, Iowa, and we're happy to have him here today. Joe LeValley.
Thanks, Linda. You lucked out because time is short. I'm not going to be able to tell them stories about you. I do appreciate the introduction. Linda didn't mention that I'm 14 pounds lighter today than I was at the start of the pandemic. Doesn't have anything to do with what I'm talking about today. I just mention it everywhere I go. I really am honored to be here. I said to Jane last night, did you ever in your wildest dreams think that I'd be invited to go all around the Midwest speaking to groups about mystery books? And Jane said, Joe, you're not in my wildest dreams. That is the spouse's role, right? To keep us humble. So I'm going to begin by making a confession. I have an invisible friend. Tony Harrington has lived in my head for 33 years. And I want to tell you a little about how he was created and what his journey has been and how that ties to my journey. So it all begins with the fact I love to write. I've always loved to write. We're big readers in our family. Our house looks like a library. And don't ask me to catch a ball because I'm the worst athlete who ever lived. But it's because when my friends were out playing baseball, I was at home reading or writing. I remember in high school when we got an assignment to write a 3-page short story from our English teacher, all the classmates groaned. I turned in a 26-page story. So I love to write. So I went to journalism school. And when I got out of college, I got a job as a newspaper reporter, and I loved it. Absolutely fascinating job. My primary beat was crime and criminal justice. I covered 8 murders in my time as a reporter, 2 of which were double homicides. I covered 2 kidnappings. I was in the state trooper's car when they caught a young man who had kidnapped and raped and stabbed a young woman. I had my life threatened. I got the late night phone call with the anonymous tip about a crime in City Hall. Fascinating, wonderful, interesting job. Then I got married and realized I needed to make more than $105 a week. So I went into healthcare through the public relations door. So I found myself, before that happened, when I was a reporter, I'm sitting in a murder trial one day, and the young man on trial, there was a evidence table stacked with evidence against him, quite literally a table in the middle of the room where the pile of evidence was mounting. And as I sat in the trial, I thought to myself, what if he didn't do it? How might all that evidence get assembled against a guy who was innocent? And I thought, wow, that's a cool idea for a novel. So I planted that in the back of my head. And then when I went to work in healthcare, I'm newly married, no kids. I have my brand new Apple IIe computer. Gives you an idea how old I am. And I thought, well, I'll take a stab at writing that novel. And I sat down, and I don't know how, over what period of time, but I wrote the first 6 chapters. I wrote the murder scene, some trial scenes. I created and introduced Tony Harrington and his boss and his best friend and his girlfriend, and created a fictional town of Orny, Iowa. So those 6 chapters went in the drawer, and as happens to many of us, life came along, right? Jane and I had 6 kids, not all at once, thank goodness. But we did, and then I went back to grad school and got my MBA, go Hawks. Then I got promoted at work, and then my boss took the job at Mercy in Des Moines, and he asked me to go with him. So suddenly I'm got a lot more to do because it's a much bigger place. And so the book mostly sat in the drawer, but it never left my head. Tony Harrington was churning up there in my brain all the time. Not every night, but frequently at night, when I was lying down to go to sleep, I'd start thinking about the book. What scene might be fun? What might, maybe this should happen, maybe that should happen. What's the cool plot twist? So 3 things happened that caused me to finish the book. One, it was just bugging the heck out of me that it wasn't done. After 25 years at that point, the book still wasn't finished. And I said to Jane, I want my kids to be able to say that I wrote a novel rather than having to say, my dad always talked about writing a novel. The second thing was I had the idea for the cool plot twist. What was going on behind the scenes at this murder trial that caused this innocent young man to be on trial for a murder? And I'll tell you, when an author gets an idea that he or she hasn't seen before, that's a goosebump moment. That is an exciting time to think, wow, I have this idea for a murder mystery plot twist I've never seen before. And it makes you very anxious to finish your book. The third thing that happened, and Linda will appreciate this story, I went to lunch with some Mercy executives. This is about 2016, probably, maybe 2017. I'm still working, but I went to lunch with some Mercy executives, and the chief nurse took a group of us to lunch to say thanks for a project that we had finished. So at lunch, Ron Mickey, the facilities guy, one of the nicest people in the world, says to the group, did you know Joe's writing a novel? And Jackie, the chief nurse, said, I don't want to hear about his stupid novel. He's had the same 6 chapters done for 25 years. Absolutely true. Jackie, by the way, knows that I tell this story. She's very proud of the fact she prompted me to finish the book. So I literally went home that day and said to my wife, I'm going to finish the book. And Jane was surprised. She hadn't heard anything about the book in a long time. But I vowed to write something on the book every day until it was done. And boy, one of the lessons I learned is when you introduce that level of discipline, things get done. So I still had 6 kids. I still had a huge job. I still busy. But I said, I'm going to get it out on my desk at home. And even if it's 1 sentence, I'm going to write something every day until it's done. And of course, what happens is you don't write 1 sentence. You write 1 sentence, then you write the second one. And before you go to bed, you've got 3 pages done. So 4 months later, the book was finished. In 4 months, the only day I didn't write was Christmas Day. And then in 2018, a number of things happened. I sent the draft to a couple of published authors, really quality, talented authors who agreed to read it for me. And I got wonderful feedback and went to work on versions 2 and 3. Other thing that happened is I retired from my job at Mercy. And suddenly I have time on my hands and the book is finished. And I thought, well, maybe I should publish it. I went looking for an agent and didn't find one. One of these published authors told me, stop looking for an agent, go find a publisher. So I did that and found Book Press Publishing. They're primarily a nonfiction publisher and they were anxious to get into fiction. So the timing was perfect. I negotiated a deal with them reasonably favorable because they were anxious to start doing fiction. So in December of 2018, Burying the Lead was released. The title comes from the journalism world. In newspapers, burying the lead is when the important facts are hidden down in the story. And I thought it was a great title for a murder mystery because obvious to me, I guess, what's really happening isn't what's going on in the very public trial, but it's the far more sinister plot that's going on behind the scenes. As I mentioned, this book came out in December of 18. The actual copyright date is 2019. The official publication is January of 19. It won 2 awards and sold out its first 2 printings. Total shock to me. I didn't know if anybody would even like it, but the reviews were all positive. I won these 2 awards. It was very exciting time to be selling books all over the place. This book is now sold in all 50 states and at least 7 countries that I know of. Never been translated, but sold to English-speaking libraries, etc. So again, that's a very exciting thing for an author, and I'm very proud of it. So then I thought when the book was done, Tony Harrington would go away. These 33 years of having this guy living in my head, but he didn't go away, much to my surprise. So I thought to myself, well, I'm still retired. I still have time. And Tony and all those characters I created are still up there churning around. So maybe I should write another book. So I chose the topic of human trafficking. It was in the news. I wanted a big topic. I didn't want what they call a cozy mystery. I thought I should have, after book 1, I needed to follow it with kind of a big story. And so I chose human trafficking. And believe me, there were many times in the creation of this book, I wish I had chosen something else. The more I learned about it, the more horrified I was. And I do not pretend to be an expert on human trafficking. I learned enough to write 1 novel, but what I learned, every person should know. For example, this is not Asian girls being shipped down Interstate 80. Human trafficking is happening in your neighborhoods, to your neighbors and your kids, in unbelievable numbers, and in ways you never imagined. And so this book is about that. Tony Harrington, the protagonist in these books, is a young newspaper reporter. And he gets on the trail of a ring of human traffickers operating in the Midwest, chases them to Chicago and Kansas City. And this book came out in February of 2020. It did win a couple of honors. It was a finalist for a Hofer Prize. But its success was far less dramatic because, of course, a month later, the pandemic hit, everything locked down. And while people were reading books, people like me couldn't be out on the circuit marketing it. And it's done okay, but that's Cry from an Unknown Grave. By the way, the title, Cry from an Unknown Grave, comes from a Longfellow quote about slavery. He wrote a whole series of poems on slavery, one of which he said, they cry from unknown graves. I thought that was a great thing to borrow for my title. I won't talk as much about the other 2, but I do want you to know, Third Side of Murder came out a little later. I thought I needed something lighter after the human trafficking book. So Tony accompanies his Italian mother back to Italy to a family funeral, decides his young cousin was murdered, gets on the trail of the guy he thinks did it, follows him back to New York. In this book, everything takes place in Italy and New York City, which was great fun to write, but also a lot of work. I've been to Italy, I love Italy, but when you sit down to write about it, you realize how much you don't know. You know, do the gas stations have convenience stores? Well, you know, as a tourist, some of these things you just don't experience. A great example of that, there's a scene in here early in the book, so again, I'm not giving away too much. Tony catches up to the guy he suspects was stalking his cousin, and they have a brief altercation in the train station. And when this book literally was in round 4 of editing, I love to write, I hate to edit. And the editors at Book Press, this was in round 4. And I woke up one morning and said, I wonder if Amalfi, Italy has a train station. And I went to Google, and sure enough, there's no train service in Amalfi. So I had to make the call, stop the presses, and now you will read about the altercation in the Amalfi bus station. The most recent book was named the best mystery of 2021 by Maincrest Media, and it's called Performing Murder. It's about Hollywood coming to Iowa to film a movie. An actress is found murdered, and it's very fun to explore how small town Iowa reacts both not only to the murder, but to the fact that there are famous actors and actresses hanging out in their town. We all know Iowa has actually experienced this. I talked to some people who've been through it, so it was kind of fun to explore a story around the whole Hollywood thing in Iowa. Book 5 is not out yet, but it is done, and it's been done for a while. It's called the Sophocles Rule. It should be out in November or December. It's Tony, same protagonist, same young newspaper reporter, gets on the trail of a 60-year-old bank robbery and murder. And when he starts getting close to the solving a 60-year-old crime, he sparks a new murder and the disappearance of a teenage boy. So it kind of escalates the story. It was, again, quite a lot of fun to write. A couple other lessons I learned. One is that when you're locked down in your house and you can't go anywhere, it's not particularly hard on a writer's productivity. During the COVID lockdown, I wrote those last 3 books that I just described. I also found out if you have a little faith in yourself, you put your book out. You know, when you send a book out to be published, you don't have a clue if it's going to be a success or a failure, if people will love it or hate it. When that first review comes in, I'll tell you, it's a sleepless night. But if you have a little faith in yourself, you can accomplish some great things. And for those of you, I don't think anybody in this room is as old as I am. Those of you who are closer in age to me, there is life after retirement. That's another key message that I've learned and really have enjoyed immensely. So that's my tale. I know we have like 3 minutes left, but I would love to answer your questions. If you have any questions about writing or publishing or the fictional town of Orny, Iowa, what would you like to know? Yeah. Sure, I will. Oh, I love this. I got asked, how fast do I write? This is such a great question because book 1, 33 years. Book 2 is longer, 350-page novel. Now, I mentioned I did the research, but once I sat down to write it, 350 pages, 33 days. I've never had a writing experience like it before or since. You hear authors say, oh, that book wrote itself, and you think that's nonsense. I really had that experience. When I sat down at the computer, I had no idea what the story was, where it was going, what was going to happen. It just poured out of me and turned out pretty good, I think. The others are far more typical processes, 4 to 5 months each. It depends an awful lot on how many invitations I'm getting to go out and speak and things like that. But when I get into a project, I write a lot. Book 6, I have 61,000 words done on book 6, so probably about half done or a little more. Having a lot of fun with that as well. It has a little bit of a spy aspect to it, so that's been fun. I told my kids the other day, this is one of the quirky things about being an author. You Google a lot of unusual stuff like poisons and knives and, you know, ways to murder people. Well, I said to my kids the other day that two of my sons are home, and I said, I've been Googling Russian missile specifications and Russian missiles manufacturing locations and all this stuff, Black Sea resorts. Said, so if Homeland Security rings the front doorbell, you'll understand. I see a question back here. Oh, that's a great question. 6 children. It really varies. I'm pretty sure, well, one, Beth has been fantastic. I have a daughter who is a marketing person, and she's one of my beta readers, one of my proofreaders. No matter how busy she is, she wants the book as soon as it's done, and she wants to be completely engaged. Alex has never read my books. So it really runs the gamut. Obviously, they're proud of their dad, and they're happy primarily that I'm having so much fun. I'm sure they all worried when I retired that they'd have to put up with me all the time, and they're thrilled that I have something to do every day, I'm sure. Great question. Yeah. Great question. Well, obviously, journalists are writers, but if I understand so the question was, can all journalists be writers? And if by that you mean, writing fiction is very different from writing nonfiction. As a journalist, I was fortunate that my first book featured a journalist doing the work that I had done for 7 years. And so I had great confidence as I wrote the trial scenes and the criminal stuff, the crime, the police, the DCI, all of that I had real experience with. I did have to work to learn more about writing dialogue and some of those things that a journalist typically doesn't do. But I think I was fortunate that I didn't jump into a literary novel in an area that I didn't have a ton of expertise. It really helped. I see the big hook coming out. If there are any last things? Yeah, so Ray said he read 2 of the books, but not in order. He read the first one and the 4th one. And can you go back? So all the books stand alone as stories. If you're really interested in reading about Italy, but you don't care about human trafficking or vice versa, you can just read that story and it stands alone as a story. The only reason to read them in order is if you're one of those people who's really particular about the chronology. Tony is younger in book 1 than he is in book 4. So this, I have been very careful to keep the timeline moving along. I do have some books here. I'm happy to sell and sign. Don't feel any obligation. That's not why I'm here. I just love talking about books. But if you're interested in having a signed book, I'm happy to stick around. If you're too busy and need to take off, I'm at Barnes & Noble at Coralville Mall this afternoon and this evening until they close. So stop out there too, either way. But I really appreciate the opportunity. It's great fun to visit with you all, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Very good. Thank you, Joe. That was super interesting, and I appreciate your time. And our club appreciates your time. So we'll be donating $10 to the Polio Plus campaign, which will put 70 new polio vaccinations out into the countries that need them. So thank you for your time. We are right at the top of the hour, so please join us next week. We are going to close out this meeting the way we always do with the 4-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth?
Is it the truth?
Fair to all
Fair to all
concerned?
concerned. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will be beneficial to all
concerned. Thank you all. Have a great day.